Ooh. Who dis?
Good start. High energy.
Yeah.
We had to move the recording time from the afternoon to the morning because everyone's kind of you can if you that's the thing about real estate. If you don't know how your morning's going to go and you come into it in the afternoon, you can be dragging by 2 o'clock some days.
Yeah. Well, it is also called the MOREning Report. So this will be the first time we're doing it.
It was a double entendre, but we might as well do it in the morning if it is called the MOREning Report.
Yeah.
We should probably release it in the morning too, Alejandro.
So the people
okay, great. There you
can
go.
watch it in the morning.
Those 5 people can listen to it together in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
cool. All right, well, we took a few weeks off because we've had traveling, conferences, spring break, and all that stuff. But we're back and committed to doing this weekly now.
Yeah.
The three of us have it on our calendars at least.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So give us high level. What are we going to talk about today? What topic? What's the topic of choice?
What I want to dive into is AI. I think it's a wild topic. Just, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Honestly, even just as a general consumer, a mom, a dad, a business person, a college student, like it doesn't matter. It's everywhere. So what I want to know is, well, what I want to dive into is like, where are we at in real estate with it? How are we using it internally here at More Agency? And then what are some ways that, people should look out for, should start to engage with it for, future longevity? So let's start at the beginning, right? Like in general, right? AI, what do you think, like the industry at large, real estate wise, where is it currently and where's it going?
Well, the thing that's probably caught some people's eye that's been in the news is that guy who said he sold his house using AI. And it was in Florida. It's always Florida man in it. It's never a man in Wisconsin. It's always Florida man. So this guy basically said he sold his house in AI using AI, and it told him what rooms to paint and all of this stuff. And essentially, if you read it, it makes the headline is very clickbaity because it makes people think, oh my gosh, this house just sold itself basically with a computer.
Yeah.
But that's obviously not what happened. He basically used AI as a research tool, and it gave him advice what to do. But the AI is only as good as the prompts that were put into it and the information it's reading on the internet itself. So it probably just scrolled pages like ours where we have blogs that tell you what to do about how to prep your house to sell it and use that to kind of give this guy information. He still would have had to use a title company if they have title in their state. He still would have had to use an attorney if they have attorneys in their state. He would have still had to go through all the physical repairs of doing everything. He'd have had to negotiate the contract still. Sure, AI would have prompted him, but if AI prompted him to take 50 grand less than he would have wanted to, he's probably not going to want to do that. So I think we're not at a place where it's becoming autonomous. What I think we're seeing at the industry at large is it is becoming a reference tool. And so what I mean by that is, number one, like I've had a client this year, they called me out the blue, didn't know who they were. They said, we found you on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
We went through and we were asking it questions and you're a name it suggested. We emailed 3 people. You're the only one who got back to us.
Yeah.
Okay. And they're building a great custom home, but they came through AI. So I think that's what we're seeing is people using it as more of a research tool, but I don't think it's going to replace things and become autonomous and make realtors redundant.
Yeah, I saw some report, I think you and I've talked about it, that Anthropic, which is one of the core AI, providers out there today, especially on the innovation side of things, they did this huge research report on what industries and how much absorption AI would have into, those industries and basically replace the humanistic side of things. And some of those, statistics were legitimately outrageous, up into the 90th percent, 92% of certain industries are going to get just destroyed by AI. And some of those I believe, and then
what if it's like black and white, just data input, data out kind of thing, then
absolutely.
Yeah, if you can be programmed.
Clerical work, things like that. Like there are definitely some, occupational, there's some people with jobs now that are at risk for sure with AI. I don't think that real estate agents specifically, that we get replaced. I think there's too much of a humanistic side of things. I do think where it's headed though is, if you're a real estate agent in 2026 and want to stay one, for the next 5 years, you're going to really need to understand how's a consumer using AI, kind of like they found you, and then how are they doing their research? Because they're not going to not do their research about what their property value is or what they think they should be doing, or kind of like this gentleman did, right? He decided to go and take it solo, right? But others are going to say, I don't want to do it by myself, but I still want to understand what I think I want to understand. And they're going to use AI to do that. So I think for an agent, understanding how a consumer is going to interact with it, and then understanding how you should be using it as jet fuel to help them deliver, great results is really the direction that agents need to start to focus.
For agents, what's so funny to me right now is you see this shift in agents who think they're using AI because they basically make their pictures of themselves AI, and they use that like that. That's great on the surface, but it's kind of a trick that doesn't actually do anything of substance. And AI editing your photos of yourself or things like that, I get it if you're doing it clickbait, right? I can't say I've not been guilty of this. I redid the Bad Bunny album cover as a joke after the Super Bowl with me on it, but I'm not. We don't use it in the profile picture sense or clickbaity sense like that. Where we use it here is kind of twofold, where we increase agent efficiency and the service, therefore, that the client gets because we've done that, and also how we optimize our marketing of our listings to be AI optimized too. So I think for realtors to be successful, you have to be doing that right now, because if you're not, you're just slacking. Like when Alejandro puts this video on YouTube, he doesn't just post it. He takes time writing the captions, making sure the captions make sense. And then he has, AI or ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever he's using at that time, proofread what he's doing, make sure it looks good, makes sense. But has he optimized it for AI search too? Because people are using AI search and things like Gemini now read YouTube for its content to answer those questions.
Well, talk to me for a second about, the different platforms that we're specifically using and why we're using them.
In terms of what AI systems we're using? Yeah,
AI systems.
So we, at More Agency, we give all our agents have a Google suite. So what that means is they automatically get Gemini Pro. So that completely changes their access to AI. You think about it as it's almost like the safety switch is off. Now you can do a lot more, a lot quicker, a lot faster. So we use Gemini. The other thing you and I have looked into a lot more lately is working with Claude, specifically Claude Cowork, building out stuff that's going to benefit the brokerage long term, and our agents that we don't think we're aware of anyone having done yet. But when we were at that conference recently, they kind of alluded to the importance of doing that. So we use Claude for that. We also, obviously, most people are using things like ChatGPT at the office to help proofread emails. If they're having difficult text conversations, they use it a lot there, kind of, what's my tone like here? But that's our main three that really we lean on. And I guess with Gemini, the way we use that to kind of lighthearted is obviously our image generation for our meetings internally. We use Gemini there just because it's probably the best image generator.
Yeah.
I think the next level for us here is we really need to figure out, Alejandro and I talked yesterday about using Descript. We have to figure out how to use HeyGen properly, and we have to figure out how to use 11 Labs properly, because I think then what that does is that allows us to take our content to a next level. We're already using Opus Pro. Alejandro does a great job using Opus Pro.
Yeah.
But benefiting us and taking that to the next level and really ultimately benefiting the client and how we use it is where we have to go. Like you've talked about these being tools before.
Yeah.
Right. When someone turns up to your house as a plumber to fix your house, knowing the right tool to use to stop your leak is what makes them a really good plumber.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to get our agents to do with AI. And I think ultimately that's what will benefit the consumer.
Yeah. I think that's what's interesting about all of these tools is that they are a tool. And so use the example of a hammer, right? Like the way you would use a hammer and how efficient you can be with a hammer would be very different than the way that I could be efficient with a hammer. And the tricks and tips and all those things, like it's just a tool. So there's a lot of different ways. There's not like one SOP or one way to like put it in a box. And I do think that now, the layering of how to use this stuff is becoming deeper and for sure more complex. The nice part is, I would say most of what I've learned about AI is been taught to me by AI. Yeah. So there's at least a learning path. And then there's a lot, what I love is that in your social media channels and, how you're consuming content today, there's so much content on AI out there. Like you couldn't do it all or you couldn't absorb it all. So what I like is being able to go explore some concepts out there and then run that back and figure out what's applicable for us inside of our business or even in just like my daily life.
100%.
How do I use this to become more efficient? How do I use this to get a better result? And I mean, I think it's what's nice is that the access to that information is just at your fingertips and inside your brain. So if you can think of it and you can type it or even talk about it, then you can get.
Well, you said it's like teaching yourself and playing with it is like the best way to kind of use it. And I think what clients like about it is when I talked to. So I think if you think about it, the way I think about this now is like a Google search engine is the equivalent of someone going to the library when the internet first came around.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
now
is.
what AI and now Google is that library, right? But AI is what the internet was. So it's so much further. And I think what's better is everyone used to know the big bugbear of Google was you would say Tulsa Realtor and it would give you a list of everyone. You knew the top ones were paid for because it said advertised, and then you'd have to click through all the other ones and figure out how it works.
Right.
Well, now with AI, you can go in and say, hey, I need a realtor in Tulsa who's experienced in Jinx Southeast. I want them to have helped people purchase homes in the $500,000 to $600,000 range.
Yeah.
And I want you to pull up their Instagram profiles so I can see them all.
Yeah.
And figure out who you like.
Sure.
And essentially the guy that I spoke to was moving here from San Antonio. Oh, Austin, sorry. They have a couple of family members here, but they've not moved for years. So he basically told me how it all played out for him. He even sent me the script. And what happened was when he asked at the very beginning, I wasn't even suggested in like the first three. He looked through their profiles and he's like, I'm not sure I like the XYZ about this person or whatever. I would like to see more of this. And over time, it kind of filtered it down and it took some out, put some in, took some out, took some in. And after a little bit of discussion, we came up. And that was it. Now, again, if we look at what's happened this year with a lot of our clients, I think the bigger shift in the industry, while AI is coming in for people that move into town, people that are in town moving, like we said, I think millennials now are more conscious of interviewing their agents.
Sure.
They might pool them, but I think they use that information to interview them because the days of thinking about using Auntie Susie,
right,
who does 1 or 2 houses a year,
right,
to help you buy the biggest transaction you're going to be,
yeah,
making as a 25-year-old, 30-year-old, whatever, is gone.
Yeah. Well, and at a minimum, I'm gonna at least run the trap back through the AI based on what Aunt Susie's telling me as a millennial, because it's not that I don't trust her, but I want another set of eyes. You know, I want another
100%.
resource to kind of verify that.
I think people when they're listing home, and another thing you have to be cautious of right now with AI, in my opinion, is it's very easy. One of the biggest bugbears I have about real estate is how people can pay for awards. I hate that you can just pay to like enter an award and
Sure.
and get this title, right?
Yeah.
So you have all these people now that are saying whether, you know, I got awarded top AI realtor or whatever. I think if I was interviewing someone, they said that to me, I would say to them, but what does that actually mean? So how does that benefit me? What are you going to do with me? Yeah. So what?
Right.
You know, if you're going to tell me, so what are you going to do with that though? Because a lot of people say it, but do they have a game plan with it? Does that mean they know prompt engineering properly? Do they have like co-work skills built out that they're specific to your listing that they can go and put data in? Like, what are they doing? And I think that that part is where I would say like a buyer beware moment as well. Because that's why it's so important to interview them and feel out like really, well, what does that mean though? Because a certificate or some letters behind your name, if it doesn't work in practicality, like you're not AI certified, but you'll probably tenfold using AI what some of these people are that have these certifications. Yeah. So it just makes me wonder too about that thing, whether that's going to be a negative impact on the industry too for people.
Give me, some feedback. What do you think, generally consumers are doing wrong or, making mistakes with AI? And then same with agents. Like what do you think if you could, top 1 or 2? Oh yeah, this is clearly missing the mark.
I do think using it as gospel.
Yeah.
Meaning
buying into the results, or
it says, say you do inspections and it points out something at inspections. Like I've seen these reports where people are uploading their inspection reports into AI and having AI tell them about it. Yeah. Well, the thing to bear in mind is those inspectors are obviously worried about liability. Number one, so they got to cover their butts, right? When they're pointing out stuff. Yeah. So if you're putting your inspection report in there, you probably need to take it with a grain of salt. And also sometimes things get pointed out, or AI can think something about an issue that is not that big of a deal. The biggest thing about ChatGPT they complain about is that it's always your cheerleader, right? It's like, you do so great, good, too agreeable. So the conference we were at, they said one of the things that was interesting was when AI first came out, the first people that ever tested it, their number one thing they all answered about it was too cold. Sure. Because it just gave you the answers. People didn't like that. Right. And so they warmed it up, and that's the problem with ChatGPT. So like when it gives you that first response, if you said, well, this seems too aggressive, it's going to go, yeah, you know what? You're right. That is asking for too much. That wood rot's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think using it, being careful and still going to an expert, because again, like you said earlier, the jobs it's going to replace are the ones that are programmed, punch in, punch out, input data, that kind of thing. Advisory roles are still going to be there.
Yeah. 100%. How do I interpret, what is this?
1,000,000%. You're bang on. You're bang on.
Just because you have more data doesn't mean you know how to read it, right? Doesn't mean you know how to navigate or decision make through whatever the real life, scenario is in front of you. I think there's a couple of mistakes people are making. One is you're not trying, right? And so if you're not,
not trying, testing it out or using it. What one?
Both, right? Like your fear of not understanding is causing you to not engage, right? So we see it happen all the time, right? It's like, oh, I'm not really kind of doing that. It's like, just try, because you can't really break it, right?
No,
it doesn't mean you should believe everything, but
100%.
you should at least start to explore, and you should test for sure. The other one is using it just as a search engine, right? Because you already had that. You didn't realize it. You had it in Google. Like, you were already doing that and getting a lot of those results. So I think it's taken it a layer deeper, and like what information and what sort of context do I want to understand better about whatever your subject matter is, and then using that as the gateway to get better understanding or deeper level of context on whatever your subject matter is, I think is the other thing that people aren't doing well. And then finally, I would say the last thing is, if you're not talking to it, and I mean talking, like I'm talking into this microphone.
Done with typing, right? Yes.
You should not be typing prompts into any AI engine anymore. Now, I get it. Some of these chats and some of these language models, after you end the conversational piece, meaning that you've talked with it and you go and type, one prompt in there, you can't go back to the conversation piece. You have to continue to type the prompt. Now, you can dictate to it, but you can't have the live combo, right? So I think that's a huge mistake people are not taking advantage of. Is you should talk to the AI. You will give it 10 times more context and understanding, so that you'll get a better response if you'll just word vomit what you're trying to do into the AI model. And the final one is, if you're not using the video function inside the AI model,
that's
my
wild.
gosh, it's so crazy. You literally can use.
Has Claude got video built onto it?
Yeah,
so they've all got it.
It's
so
crazy.
Claude, all that. Yeah.
Gemini, anything. You can literally just use the camera on your iPhone and walk around and say, "Hey, listen, I don't understand, this microphone very well. Would you explain it to me?" And it's going to say, "Oh, that's a Shure MB7, da, da, da," and it's going to break it all down for you because it can see too. So I think those are some big mistakes. People are leaving opportunity on the table that way.
Yeah, I think so as well. How many AI subscriptions do you think you have right now?
Oh, geez, that's kind of scary. I bet it's higher than 6.
Yeah, we need to go through some of those. There's some that we're not even using right now.
Some of them are those ones though where it's like, oh man, I got hit with an IG ad and I downloaded the app, and it's, at best it's some skins or some, some transcripting or some stuff that you can generate imagery with.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it necessarily like a real, it's not
resource.
Like Claude.
We're not using it daily. Yeah.
No, it was a toy.
What are you using daily, real quick?
Claude, ChatGPT, Gemini, all three of those sure every day.
What do you wish AI did more of for you right now?
I still think that on some of the connectivity, right? So I think what AI is missing right now is getting some of my external data connections back into their systems really well. As we're building some projects internally right now, and almost immediately I'm running into, I want to be able to use this content, but it's in my Google Drive, and this language model doesn't connect directly. Some of those connections, and I think that those are. I'm not a tech guy, but my guess is those are API connection points that are just not there yet. I think it rapidly changes. I mean, I can't imagine that in 5 or 6 months that you really can't plug pretty much anything into anything.
And what are you doing for more agents with AI right now?
Working internally a lot right now. So I think the key to success for a brokerage over the next 5 years is going to really focus on how do we allow for AI to be the jet fuel to provide better service to the consumer, and then us as agents, how are we going to help the help the consumer interpret this AI information dump that they're going to be able to have access to, both individually for themselves, as well as what we're going to provide them as agents. How do I interpret that to make a really wise decision? And then as obviously as a brokerage, right? How are we providing efficiency inside of the workflow and the job that it is to be a real estate agent today? So we're really working on building those two, I would say that into our ecosystem really well.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it's all about delivering value. I feel like we're at a time in the industry where it's almost like when the tractor came out in farming, where the farmers who were the early adopters of the tractors were the ones who stayed around.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're going to see in real estate. I think there'll be a big shift in the number of agents in the industry, and a lot of it will be derived from who truly took this on board and used it and didn't just use it as kind of a silly party trick, basically. So,
100%.
All right. Appreciate you tuning in today as always. And you ever have any questions or anything like that, let us know.
Yeah. Go try out AI.